let me start with saying that. Let me start with this basic definitions, right? So let me start with this first basic definition. The topic today is crafting a success story, and there are two key elements to this. The craft and then the success. So what do you define as a craft? The Oxford Dictionary says a craft is an activity involving skill in making things. So let me restate this, right? So something that you do using some skill, and at the end of using that skill, you get some output. So that is defined as the craft, an activity involving skill in making things. So, so that means if you have to be successful, so you need to have a craft. That is the essence of the session is going to be. Okay. Then what is the definition of a success? A success is, anybody can say, I can be successful. Some for a baby which is taking the first step to walk, it is a success. For a doctor to treat his first patient is a success. For a student to pass his grade examination is a success. So success is not something as a destiny, it is a kind of a journey. So every walks of life, every step you take, every move you make, and there is success all around you. It is that how we define success, right? Is it a success that we see inside ourselves that we have succeeded? Or is it the success that the world sees us being succeeded? It's two different connotations. But the whole idea behind it is we have to make the right progress. So in order for us to achieve this success, the whole important thing is, we need to have aim and we need to have a purpose. So if you have an aim and a purpose, and then you have the necessary skills to make things, then definitely success would be knocking your doors. So with that definition, let us get into a little more depth about what skill is all about. Okay. So if we look at, developing skill, there are four basic ingredients you need to nurture in yourself. That means, first thing is to be inquisitive, meaning what? The meaning of being uh, building a character in you to keep learning or trying to find out what this is. In simple terms, you need to be asking the question why every time you see something, do something, act on something, right? So ask the first question why. If somebody comes to you and asks for um, a paper presentation, do why you want to do the paper presentation. If somebody says, okay, this is how you need to solve this problem, ask the question why. Why should I do it this way? Because why is the driving principle, and I will be going into the depth of why. So the first skill development step is to be inquisitive. So just make sure you are curious about everything that you see. You are curious about how do I learn this? You are curious about how these things work, and you are curious about how these things evolve. So when you build this kind of a curiosity, certain things are natural for people. It will come automatically. For some people, it may be something you have to cultivate it, right? So you need to start with, give an opportunity, try to be curious about everything that you see and come in contact with. So being inquisitive is quite an important piece to develop your skill. So now that you have curiosity, the next step is to learn about it, right? So now there is a curiosity. How does this things fly? When the Wright brothers looked at the sky, the birds were flying, they became curious. Why do they fly? Why can't there be a human flight? And then they worked towards building um, the the first aeroplane. Did you know there were people who were building aeroplanes way before them? They had more money, they have more budget, but then the Wright brothers, with very minimal utility and support, they were the first to go out and build the airplanes. And the whole reason because they had the curiosity, and they were continuously learning. They were changing their models, they were changing their definitions, they were changing their wingspans, and all the things they were doing. And the reason is they are taking whatever they are learning and they're applying. So that comes this third step. If you learn something, you have to apply. The most important thing, if you observe, right, you have seen that the first thing is you learn by listening and being curious, and then whatever you have learned, if it needs to stick to you, right, it has to remind you in your mind, it has to be in your head. The only way you can do it by applying it. You take something, you apply it. So if you apply it, you would really understand something. So whatever you have learned, make sure you are applying that wherever you're learning. So take the concept that you're learning, keep applying the concept so that your learning gets validated. Something you're learning, you have to make sure that it is validated, right? So simple thing, you have a battery. It has got a positive and a negative terminal, and you would want to check, is there any juice left in the battery, right? Is there any power in the battery? So how do you do it? You connect to LED, the terminals, and you check it. It glows, and there is a power. So you have learned that there is a positive and a negative, and the electrons flow in a specific direction. All these things you have learned in the book, but then when you take that and apply that, then that is where the rubber meets the road, right? When actually you take it and apply, that's when it becomes uh, there forever in your mind to stay. And what is the best thing about applying it, that when you apply your learning, your imagination expands. So as your imagination expands, your articulation power, to take your learning, since you applied it, since your imagination has grown, you can take that learning and teach to others, which is the beauty of the skill, because learning is one thing that, the more you spread, the more you gain. That is one thing you must have heard, right? It is a Kuraya Chelvam. What do you mean by that? That is one thing you can take and give and take and give, and it never, depletes. So that is why you want to keep applying whatever you have learned. Okay. So the other important piece is the concept of improving. So somebody who does it, the first three steps, if you look at, I'm curious, I am learning, I'm applying. But then I'm curious, I am learning, I'm applying. You're going to do the first three steps. It is not going to find the end result, right? So do you mean to say when the first flight that the Wright brothers flew, after that, then they never improved? They definitely, the aeroplanes definitely improved, right? So you have seen the fastest of the faster, and even today, if you really look at it, Boeing's are making the largest planes, and Airbus is making the largest planes to carry maximum people, right? So payload has been highly improved. Commercial flying is out there with reduced economy in fuel and payload increase. Wingspan improvements and a whole lot of things happening in the airline industry. What does it mean? It is not just, the imagination is growing and then the learning is there and people are applying the skills, but they're constantly improving it. So, so everything that you do has to have a feedback mechanism. What do you mean by a feedback mechanism? You learn something, you practice something, and then you get a result out of it, and then reapply whatever you have practiced and ensure that is an improvement in it, right? So, so if you take these four steps and you keep repeating this over and over and over and over again, okay, and then that is how your skill gets developed. So this is a very important step, right? If you need to uh, craft a success story, you need to have your skill improved. And then the best thing to improve your skill is to have these four qualities, And now let's slightly dwell deeper into what this is all about, right? I said inquisitiveness, right? What is really inquisitive? I just gave you uh, a 1,000-foot definition of being what inquisitive is. Now let's look into a little more deeper into this. Okay. So I'll give you some examples so you can really understand. So what you're seeing on screen is defined as the golden circle. Okay, you must have um, heard about this golden circle. It talks about three circles, concentric circles, with why being in the center, how at the next, and what. Every one of us in our life, if people come and talk to us, right, we always travel the path of what, how, and why. I'll give an example right there. If somebody comes to you and ask about what are you, so what we usually do, we basically say I have completed my engineering with 4 years of study to become an architect or a programmer or a manufacturer or whatever. So that is how we always define. What that really means is every time we think about something or we act on something, we always think the what first. What am I doing? That's what we think. Then we talk about how. And then finally, why am I doing? But then, in order for you to be really successful, you have to go the other way. You should actually start with the why, then the how, and then the what. Even in your resumes that you're making, even in your pitch that you're making, or even about your profile that you're putting together, if you do it the other way, start always with the why, go with the how, and then the what, then the whole story changes. Here is another example. Let's say if the same person says it this way, I always wanted to develop intuitive software for people. So I studied computer science for 4 years or computer engineering for 4 years. So you see the difference between the first sentence said by the person and then the second sentence said by the person. There is a sea of change. It actually drives into the head of the opponent that this person has got a value or he sees a value in whatever he tries to do. So that's the whole idea behind it, right? So you want to start with why, how, and what. So I'll give you a insider joke, right? So in order for you to become successful, it's going to be 1 in 1,000 people who will do it. Not everybody is going to be successful because everybody is not going to apply all the techniques and work and these things. But interestingly, this Simon Sinek is the person who wrote about this golden circle, about why, how, and what, sometime uh, like 10, 15 years back. But very interestingly, in 1965, the poet Wali, our Tamil Padalashriyar Wali, he has told it in a song, ஏன் என்ற கேள்வி கேட்காமல் வாழ்க்கை இல்லைன்ட்டு. It's a very interesting song, and you get a chance, just go listen to that song. And very interestingly, the movie title is ஆயிரத்தில் ஒருவன். So it's a song and the movie title kind of matches. It's a funny coincidence. When I was putting this together, I could relate it. So interestingly, because நீங்க அந்த பாட்டை கேட்டீங்கன்னா you'll understand, right? That ஆயிரத்தில் ஒருவன் is 1 in 1,000. And 1 in 1,000 is the person who is asking the question why, which is kind of narrated in that song. And the whole song is a phenomenal knowledge bearing song, but just the picturization would be in a different context, but then the content is in a different context. So going back to why, how, and what, just make sure that you always start with the why. So you start with the why, and then you narrate the how and the what. The complete definition about how you look at things will completely change. So make sure that when you are inquisitive, just make sure why are they doing it, and then how are they doing it, and what is the end result of doing this. Just make sure you follow these path. Okay. The next element here is learning. So so why learning is important, right? So even today, I keep learning. I continuously learn about new things. So the need for continuous learning is the need of the hour if we want to survive. So what does it mean? So if we really want to survive, right, that the generations to come, the generations we are in, learning is very, very essential. And the learning has got four key ingredients it helps. First ingredients it helps us in is being relevant. What do you really mean by being relevant? So if you are in a meeting, if you are with a few people, let's assume you are traveling in a cab with few unknown people, or you're traveling in a flight with a neighbor who is in a different industry. You know, at least we should have the ability to have a relevance of conversation. அவங்க என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்றது நமக்கு புரியணும் இல்லையா? So அப்போ வந்து அந்த டாபிக் நமக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கணும். So that means there is a little bit of relevance is required. So learning gives you that relevance. So it helps you being relevant. Boost your profile. You know, what do you mean by boosting your profile? You know, if you really look at your profile, many of the students when they come out of college, they will basically have, I studied in this school, I studied in this college, this is my percentage mark, and my areas of interest is XYZ. And then you'll basically say, I am looking for a good job to improve my career and all this thing. This is typically what we see in a profile. But then if you have done learning, the way you'll articulate your resume or your profile will be completely different. It will talk about the different programs you have attended. It talks about the internships you have attended. It also talks about various uh, various books you have read. Uh, so it kind of expands your whole profile. So I would suggest keep learning so that it adds to your profile. The next part is generate new ideas. So this is very important, right? Because uh, once you keep learning, every time you learn something, there is always a clue that you will get to a problem that you had earlier. This clue will or will not be a solution, but then it will give you a new idea so that you can expand that idea and build a solution, or you can always expand, always build a whole new solution. So learning helps you give that. Then finally, then the final thing is get a new perspective. So somebody, all along we have been taught, okay, கஷ்டப்பட்டு வேலை செய்யணும், work hard. This is what we have been taught all along. But you can also do the work happily, enjoyfully, or joyfully. Enjoy it, you can still do it. All this happens because of the new learning. When you learn new things, you get a different perspective about everything that you have been taught. So you are going to question your core, right? All along you have been subjected to a method of coaching or training. Once you start learning by yourself, you will start to question those, and then you will get a whole new perspective. Okay, so this again related me to one Tirukural I would want to mention here. ஒருமை தான் கற்ற கல்வி ஒருவருக்கு ஏழுமையும் ஏமாப்புடைத்து. What that really means is, somebody who keeps learning, right? That learning, or the thing that they have learned will come with him for seven births. So if that's very interesting, right? So if something in all in our life, what we are trying to do is we try to know what we don't know. And there is the other piece that we don't know, there is this there. So it is interesting that we always try to bridge the gap of knowing something we don't know. So if that is the whole quest of our life, if something can come with you for seven births, why would you even stop doing that? So just make sure you keep learning as you progress. All right, now that we have learned something and we understood the importance of learning, let us try to think about how to practice this, right? So practice makes a man perfect is the old proverb. I'm just saying practice makes everyone perfect. Everyone, it's not a man, an animal, it doesn't matter who it is. It just makes everyone perfect. So you train a dog for jumping 10 times, and the 11th time it knows how to jump. You train you train a cycle, train to ride a cycle, you learn to perfect it over and over again if you keep doing it, right? So the question is, practice makes everyone perfect. So keep applying what you have learned. So here is an example, right? Create opportunity, not just look. uh, okay, what that really means is, I'm going to focus on this one. Keep create opportunity, not just looks. So we all do one thing. After we finish our college, what we do is we start to just you know apply for jobs, we keep looking for the jobs, and we just want to make sure we would want to just get into the right job. Because the definition of the right job is somebody like your friend or your parent or your uncle or someone told you, hey, this is the best job for being a computer engineer, or this is the best job for being a civil engineer or an electrical or an electronics engineer, right? We all think that is the best job. It is not true. What is true is it is the best job for your uncle or your brother or your friend because of the situation they have been in, their experience they have got, and then the experience they related it to. So that's a whole different thing. So just don't just keep on looking for finding a job. I would suggest that is one thing, but you always create opportunity. What do you mean by that is, what do you mean? Can I then become an entrepreneur? Yeah, you can become an entrepreneur. I don't have money. So what? So, so here is where I would want to relate back to few things that I have done. So the day I finished my exams, the next day, I didn't wait for my results. And the next day, I went out looking for a job, and there was some basic job. The job was to basically go ahead and fill up forms, go to each and every company, uh, get to know their computer details, fill up the form. Its basic job is to data entry job, but it is most like a market survey. You have to take the form and go to each company and do it. So I didn't wait for my first job to be the computer programmer or to become a database administrator or somebody in that fraternity would rather do. But then that opportunity gave me an insight into a whole lot of things. What do you mean by a whole lot of things? I really understood. I'm talking about 90, half of you wouldn't be born, 90s, 94, right? 94, you just go out. There is hardly few companies who would have computers. And then if you have to do a survey of computers and software, it's hardly anything you can do. But then you really understand what computers are. They were what type of computers, who were making. There were IBMs, there were Honeybee and HP and other companies were there. Softwares were there. So you really get to understand a lot more. If I had waited for my right job, I would have missed that opportunity. So today, I had that opportunity. I created that opportunity. By creating that opportunity, it gave me an insight into the evolution of the hardware and the software industry. That was a phenomenal experience. The first few years of evolution of the hardware and software industry in the Indian market context was a great exposure. And that was not just because I was sitting. I was just going ahead and creating my own opportunity by taking and grabbing what comes. So that it wasn't a well-paid job. It was like I would get 5 rupees per form if I fill it up correctly, and it has to be stamped by the company I collected these details from. So there's a whole lot of terms and conditions, and then at the end of the day, I just got 5 rupees. But it's not that 5 rupees that really mattered. It did matter when you look at it from an economic perspective. It thinks like it is 5 rupees, right? But then it is not. Actually, the amount of knowledge is priceless. You learned something very interesting. You really understood how the hardware industry changed in India. What were the software? Before even Microsoft Office came into place, what was there? What was WordStar, which was doing like Excel, and then from that mode, how Excel evolved, and a whole lot of things. So that is why I always say that just don't lock yourself expecting the right job you would end up with. So just create your own opportunity. The second one is don't always look for revenue. Money is a byproduct. So that's my second part here, right? So what I mean by that is the few years after you graduate, the most important period in your life, and that time is for you to make sure you are applying the knowledge that you acquired in the last 4 years. Or, I mean, that's probably like from your LKG to the end of your college is what you have been acquiring knowledge, right? It is a great time for you to apply that. So if you have taken about 14, 15, or 16 years of rather 18 years of education to come to where you are now, then would you want to try those 18 years of education? So what I mean by that is you want to keep applying what you have learned over and over again in a very short time. So for instance, you have studied for 18 years, you cannot take 18 years to apply that knowledge, right? You have to apply it within like 3 years or 4 years. So if you have to take 18 years of your learning and applying it within 6 years, let's say, make the math easier, right? So that means about 3 times of learning effort has to be applied in a very shorter span. You got to apply that. So when you try to do that, if you are focusing on only the money part, right, it cannot work. It will never work. So the first 6 years after your college is where you are going to apply all your knowledge, try different things, make sure that you know you constantly rework on the things, and then and don't worry about the money part, and then at the end of the thing, the money would be always flowing. So if you're focused on your goal to achieve something, the byproduct would always be there. And one day you'll really realize that this byproduct has superseded your application of effort. So that day would always come. But then don't start with just focusing on the money part. The next thing is do multiple jobs. So, because as I told you that if you have to take your 18 years of learning and put it into like 6 years of application, you have very little time. You cannot do it one straight job. If you're doing a, let's say, a 9 to 6 job, it's not going to do it. You have to do multiple jobs, or you have to do extended hours, so that you apply, you you reapply, you validate, and you ensure that there is construct happening at the end. So that is why it is very, very, very important to keep on applying. And then the only way you can do it by doing multiple jobs. So just don't limit yourself to, okay, I've learned, let's say you learn civil engineering, I only do work for an architect or a construction company or like a road laying company or something like that. You can always work for anything. You can work in a store where it sells paints, in a paint shop, or in a store where it sells cements and iron bars, and then you meanwhile work on other places. So evenings you do this, mornings you do this, in the night you do some other work. So that is how you can actually learn major things. And one important thing I would always tell is you should not stray away from your track. So for instance, if you are in a we'll go with the same example, right? If you are in the civil industry and you are a civil engineer, make sure that you are basically doing everything surrounding civil. You are working in a construction company. Evenings you work in a paint shop or a retail shop for cement and iron bars, and then in the night you work in a stores or something like that. So everything is kind of relevant to the work you are doing. So that's the key part, right? So just make sure you are around that to ensure that your learning stays on track. And if you're a civil engineer, you definitely need to become a civil engineer. You be in that field. If you are a computer engineer, make sure you do that. For instance, you join a programmer somewhere. You do marketing of computer software somewhere, but be in the software industry, and you be administrator of Amazon somewhere. It can be all different things. It's not just I only do programming. I don't understand marketing. I don't know infrastructure. I don't know computer assembly. It's all there. You should be in a position to learn all those things. And then that is the period of the 6 years. So as you are learning all these things, you are acquiring tremendous skill and tremendous knowledge. At the end, you are going to become successful because the accumulation is in a very specific way. And I will tell you how once you order all this thing, you will understand when you lay it down. It becomes right now it is like like a rag picker. Rag picker, the paper burger. The rag picker, he doesn't qualifies anything. If he sees a paper, he'll pick it up. If he sees a tin, he'll pick it up. He sees a plastic, he'll pick it up, put it in his bag. Okay, his job is to just pick up all the things he gets. So right now in that phase of multiple jobs, your job is to make sure you are like a rag picker. You just keep picking up things and just putting it inside your head. And and then he goes to his house in the evening, he will sort it out. And he will take it, he will separate the newspapers separately, he'll separate the um, tin cans separately, the Pepsi bottles and plastic separately. So he now separates it and segregates it, and then bags them separately, and then takes it to where, to the guy who would buy it. So your knowledge is very similar to that. Right now, you are like a rag picker, pick up everything and put it inside. Over a period of 6 years, you'll be assimilating all this knowledge and slowly putting them into the right box, right? In the separate buckets or separate packs. And then if you take it to the buyer, it has got a priceless value. The worth is different. When it's in that sack, it's worth different. When it is now segregated, organized, then it is different. So this is how applying a knowledge really helps. And again, refer back to another kural, கற்க கசடர கற்றவை கற்றபின் நிற்க அதற்கு தக. So that means what? Whatever you learn it without mistakes or குற்றமற்று கற்க வேண்டும். அதுதான். And then whatever you learn, stand by that. So அது ரெண்டு அர்த்தம் எடுத்துக்கலாம். ஒன்னு வந்து it means that you apply that or you stand by what you learned. So நீங்க ஒரு பாதையில இறங்கி போறீங்கன்னா அதுல நில்லுங்க, இல்ல வந்து அதுக்கு வேண்டிய practice பண்ணுங்க. So whichever it is, just make sure whatever you learned you are applying. The essence of it is that you are applying. It could be being in the path or being itself. Okay, all right, that's applying. Let me do a quick check. Next item is we're looking at improving. Okay, that's the fourth step, right? So we saw the first steps and then the fourth step. So this is a very interesting process, and this comes from something called as a build atomic habits. So what that really means is atom is the smallest particle, and what he says is the author of the book says about atomic habits. So we are all I read this somewhere, very interesting. பழக்கம் என்பது முதல் ஒட்டடை, பின்பு அதுவே இரும்பு சங்கிலி அப்படின்னு. Somewhere I read it before, so I don't want to say this. So what it means is we all are kind of tied to a set of behavior and habits, right? And many of us know that we have to come out of this habit. We have to change our habit. We have to change our behavior. We have to come out and evolve something different. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen. You wake up in the morning and then you are a new person. No, it doesn't work that way. So what it says is, for us to bring in change in us, there is a systematic procedure you need to follow. So the systematic procedure is basically, it talks about, identity, system, and outcome. Okay. So very interesting concepts here. So what is an identity? The power of identity means, so for example, it takes something, okay, you want to become a marathon runner. Okay. So what you will do? First thing is, I will start tomorrow morning. I will wake up and I will start running, practice running, and then maybe over a period of time, I will do the full marathon or maybe a half marathon. That is what we do. But then the atomic habits defines it in a different model. What it says is you have to first start identifying yourself as that person, right? Be the person who you want to be. First of all, even if you're going to start something, first thing in your mind, you should say that I am him. What is that? I am a marathoner. So I am an architect. I am somebody, whoever that you would want to be. I want to be a pilot. Say you in your mind, I am a pilot. Then you work backwards. How do you work backwards? Take small steps to get there. So meaning what? In order for you to be a marathoner, then if you think first, I am a marathoner, what will you have in mind? So you will basically start thinking about what does he do, right? So you will then start practicing what he does. Then you would follow the steps of somebody who is a marathon runner, and that's how you build it. And then you have to be with the crowd who runs marathons. So that is how you can evolve. So identity is very important. So in order for you to improve, first thing first is you have to set the identity, who you are. That identity you have to build in you. If you want to become a programmer, you want to be an architect, first you become a programmer. It is not necessary you need to know coding. You first define yourself, I am a programmer, and then work backwards. And then take the steps to go there, and then be with the people who are like who you want to be. So that's the identity definition. So first thing is to get the identity done. Then develop a system. Okay. So now that you have identified yourself as a marathon runner, you can't just become, because you say to yourself, I'm a marathon runner, then you're not going to become a marathon runner. By just taking steps, you're not going to become a marathon runner. But being with people, you cannot become a marathon runner. You have to put certain system in place. So for that to put a system in place, there are two major things you want to change: habits and behavior. So what are habits? So that means everybody who runs marathon practice in the morning, let's say. In your neighborhood, everybody runs in the morning. So that means what? If you are a late waker up or you're a night person, you have to switch it back to the morning person. So you have to change your habit. So you have to define a system that includes change in habit. Then the next what? Behavior. So how do you behave? So you have to be conducive to the environment. You have to change the attitude. Uh, so you have to bring in behavioral change. So if you don't bring in behavior change, only just habits change. Behavior means it'll not be helpful. For example, every day morning you have to wake up, you have to set up an alarm. Then you go to your mother or father and tell, hey, wake me up in the morning every day, 5 o'clock, wake me up. But then you are rude with your parents, you ask in a most unpleasant way. Why don't you wake me up in the morning? 1 or 2 days they are going to miss waking you up, and then the system is going to fail. So if you have to bring a change in habit, you have to change in behavior. The behavior and the habits go together to become a systematic change. Okay. So then the next thing is outcome. So the outcome is very important. So for instance, somebody wants to start running. You cannot basically day one start run the 20 kilometers 20-mile half marathon. You have to probably start somewhere. First you have to start walking, make sure your body understands walking. Then you start jogging and then walking, jogging and walking, kind of mix and match this, and then ensure you have a recovery time. And it is a tiny progress, right? So you should put a 6 months plan. If you are a very fit person, it'll take 6 months for you to move from some decent level of running to run in marathons. So you have to day 1 to day 10 to day 30 to month 2 to month 3. The plan should be there. And these plans should be very teeny. For example, let's say if you can improve, if somebody is overweight, right? If you decide to only do 1% change every week, right? 1%. So let's say if you're 100 kg, 1% change, 1 kg reduction over a week. I mean that's not that easy, but generally I'm just giving an example. So 1 kg a week, right? Just imagine at the end of 52 weeks, that's a tremendous progress, in a year. 52 weeks are there. So there's a tremendous progress if it just change by 1%. So tiny progress over time is the most best way to get outcome. And then that will give an outstanding results. I will define what an outstanding result is. So for example, the weight loss itself, we can examine. The first 5 to 10 kgs, nobody will realize you're reducing weight. You only know that you're losing weight. And then after 10 kg, people will start to realize. So what that really means is the world only appreciates outstanding results. They will not appreciate you for the tiny progress that you had towards your goal. Nobody will recognize that. Nobody will recognize that. They will only recognize the outstanding results. So, for instance, everybody taking wicket, nobody recognize in cricket, right? When you hit 500 wickets, then you become a world leader. Then everybody recognize. That means what, they have not played cricket, or they have not taken wicket. They have been taking wicket consistently over a period of time. But that really that did not show in the hindsight, or in the view of the audience. The only thing it settles down is kind of when there is an outstanding results, right? So just look at all the Commonwealth game medalists. We we don't even know all these people were existing. They have been doing performing. They have been performing at different levels, different stages. District level, interzonal, state level, and national level. But then when they hit the Commonwealth podium, the gold medal there, then we recognize it, right? So the world looks at outstanding results. So the outcome for outstanding results is only through tiny progress over time. So just keep improving on this. So hopefully you've been following this through. So then the next slide is my last slide, and we're going to be the 1 hour mark. So here it is, coming to the last one. So we just understood the craft, which is driven by the skill, and then the success, which is driven by the aim and purpose. Let's look at the definition here. A purpose answers the question why, while an aim answers the question what. So here is an example, right? So I have started many small companies before Laserbeam, and I have failed. Every time I start, few friends will join together, we'll start a company, we'll fail. We'll then another few friends will come. The only thing is the entrepreneur bug has bit me for a long time. From the day one from college, I wanted to do something of my own. But then understand this line, what I said, do something of my own. When it is do something of my own, it is not a success statement. It is a mission statement. It will just give you a mission. Okay, my mission is to build something. So the purpose of the question why and the aim that says what, if that is not answered, you will not become a successful entrepreneur. So all along, first entrepreneur journey failure, second entrepreneur journey failure, third entrepreneur journey failure, and then the whole reason is because until then the purpose was not found. And then the fourth one, why it becomes successful, is because when the purpose is larger than you. Okay, you know, right? When Homi Baba, the atomic father of India, right? So when they decided to build a nuclear weapon for the national deterrence, their object was not to become, just to build a bomb and blast it. That was not their objective. Their objective was, the purpose was really, really big. What it means by really big is, it is bigger than him, it is bigger than his team, it is bigger than the department, it is bigger than the division, and it is bigger than the national security. It is at a whole different level. And that is what it says, when it comes, it said, I have to protect the people of India, and we cannot have another war with the 1964 war with China. We cannot afford to have another one. So we need to protect this country. So their idea of building a bomb was larger than themselves. So when your purpose in life is becoming larger than you, your family, your friends, your state, your nation, then the possibility of success improves a lot. You may even succeed with smaller purpose, but then the larger purpose paves the way to success, and also, you know, regulates your failures. For instance, so when we started laser beam, so there was a very large project one of the company was doing. There were about close to 100 people working in that project. And due to some reason, after so many millions of dollars being spent, the project was scrapped, and all the 100 people were sent home. And it struck me very bad into the spine, right? So like, it is none of these 100 people's mistake. Somebody sitting somewhere made a wrong decision, and because of that, the life of all these 100 people is lost. Is what was the purpose that was driving at that time in my mind. How could such a thing happen? There should be something different. Something should have been done to make this wrong right. So what should we do to do that? So when that purpose hits you like a huge hammer in your head, then your aim becomes different. So now your focus is different. And that's when, what am I supposed to do now? Right? So why this happened? Why this happened? Why this happened? Because somebody made the wrong decision, wrong software, wrong implementation. So everybody lost job. Why? Because of all this reason. What should we do to make sure that this doesn't happen? Build a fantastic product that can support these global customers, solve their problems. That was the driver. So how Laserbeam was born, just because of the whole purpose and aim, which is bigger than you, your team, your family, and a whole lot. So that is why, when you plan to do anything successful, make sure your purpose is bigger than anything that you can think of. Okay. So concludingly, I want to say this last kural, Akam Adar Vinay Chennam, Asivila Ukam Udayan Uday. That really means that with all the efforts that you put continuously without any gap, then success will knock your door and it will come to you without fail. And you don't have to go looking for it. It will come to you. All right.